Hey guys, Average Character here with another Raid Shadow Legends video. Thank you so much for dropping by the channel. As always, I really appreciate it. Today we're going to be continuing the How Would I Fix series. So this is going to be for Nari the Lucky today. Now, this is video number 2. Video number 1 was Rosin Scarhide, the first legendary fusion champion that everyone has access to, that is not time gated, so you can get Rosin at any point in the game. I got mine super late because it just wasn't a big deal. For me, he even at the time that I started, he was already experiencing some power creep. So I thought it was a good place to start, even though some people said like, hey, this has been done before. But I was like, well, it's my first time doing a video like this, and I wanted to start with something that everyone has access to. So Rosin Scarhide was number 1. Today we're doing Nari the Lucky. This guy's a Force Affinity defensive based champion out of the Dwarf faction. He was a St. Patrick's Day champion, Fusion or Fragment. I can't remember which one. And I also have a hard time remembering how many years ago it's been now, but it has been, I think, a couple years at least that Nari the Lucky has been in the game. Now, Nari the Lucky is an interesting one because on paper, his kit actually reads like it's pretty good. But in execution, like when you actually try to use him, especially when he's unbooked, he falls short most of the time. Like there are very few areas where this guy shines, and he has unfortunately been power crept pretty hard by even some epic champions, and one particularly in the Dwarf faction. So not great when you're getting power crept by an epic champion in your own faction when you're a legendary champion. So Nari the Lucky, we're going to go over all of his abilities. We'll do some gear recommendations at the end. I already had the masteries up on the screen for you guys to see, just because I didn't want to spend a whole bunch of time reading through them. I thought maybe, you guys can multitask. You can listen to me do my intro while also looking at the masteries that I have him in. So let's go ahead and start with the A1 first. So on the A1, We Filter, I love that name, We Filter, attacks one enemy, has a 50% chance of stealing a random buff from the target. Now this books up to a 75% chance, and I actually think that the A1 is fine. I actually think that the A1 is a pretty solid ability. It synergizes well with the A3, even though the A3 is pretty weak in my opinion. So I actually wouldn't change anything about We Filter. I think it's solid the way that it is. It books up to a reliable 75% chance to steal a random buff. I like that. The A2, on the other hand, Rainbow of Woe, this is a 4-turn. It does book to a 3-turn cooldown. So in my display I have on the screen for you guys, I accidentally cut off the cooldown on there. This does book to a 3-turn cooldown, so just keep that in mind. Rainbow of Woe, we have an AoE with which has a 75% chance of placing decreased accuracy and decreased resistance for 2 turns on all enemies, books up to a 100% chance, and books to a 3-turn cooldown. The problem with Rainbow of Woe, I see where they're going with this. They're like, okay, so you'll place decreased accuracy on all enemies, and they'll have a harder time placing debuffs on your champions. You'll also place decreased resistance on all enemies, and you'll have an easier time placing debuffs on the enemies. The problem is that I think it's trying to do 2 separate things. And what I would do is I would hyperfixate on one. So I would either say, okay, we're going to make it super easy for everyone to place their debuffs on all enemies, or we're going to make it super difficult for all enemies to place their debuffs on us. So what I would do is I would change this. I would say attacks all enemies, has a 75% chance of placing decreased accuracy on all enemies for 2 turns. Also, has a 75% chance of placing increased resistance on all allies for 2 turns. I would keep it 75% chance unbooked on both, have a book up to a 100% chance, and book to a 3-turn cooldown. So I would hyper focus on having enemies having a more difficult time to place their debuffs on us. And when you double whammy like this, so decrease accuracy and increase resistance, what you're doing is you're not really enabling your tanky champions. Like your support champions, a lot of times they have enough resistance as it is. What you're doing here is this is more so for your nukers, right? Your debuffers, the people who you have typically built with more damage and more accuracy. You're going to enable them to be able to resist debuffs and effects more easily. So I'm thinking, for example, like my Crowhod, right? My Crowhod I have built for maximum damage, but he does have a fair amount of resistance, but it's not enough resistance to really be able to resist most of the effects. Sometimes he gets lucky and he resists, but most of the time it's not quite enough, right? Not quite enough. And what this ability would do if we updated it this way is it would enable Crowhod to be able to maximize his damage still, but then be able to have a much better chance of resisting effects that enemies are trying to place on us. So I would just fixate on one area, right? That's what I would do. One function, right? Not one area, one function. So it would be resisting, right? And that's all I would do. I think that would be. I don't think it would be super broken. I think you're starting to see stuff like that actually in the game more. I'm thinking of the Void Legendary, the assassin guy, and I forget his name. Bayek. Sorry. Bayek has something where he's placing increase accuracy and decrease. I'm sorry. He's placing, is it increase accuracy and then decrease accuracy on all enemies? I forget. I'm sorry. I butchered that. But anyway, the point of the kit is that he's going to place increase accuracy on all of his allies, and then enemies cannot critical hit allies who have more accuracy than the enemy. So you're seeing something like that already. Granted, it's a Void Legendary, but I don't think it would be as powerful as that, especially in Arena. So that's what I would do for the A2. On the A3, we've got Irresistible Wealth. This is a 6-turn, books to a 4-turn cooldown. It's an AoE that has a 75, books up to 100% chance of placing Provoke for 1 turn. Also, places a counterattack on this champion for 2 turns. Now, there's 2 things I would change about this. The first one is the obvious one. I think it's I think it's way past time for the standard for these types of abilities to be 3-turn cooldowns. So it books to a 4-turn cooldown, but it's a 1-turn provoke for 4 turns, right? On a 4-turn cooldown. I don't like that, especially when you consider that you have champions in the game like Armand's. He's like the pinnacle example of this, where Armand's has, when fully booked on a 3-turn cooldown, a 100% turn meter steal of all enemies, and then places a stun for 1 turn. So it's the best crowd control debuff along with a 100% turn meter steal. So you're basically getting an extra turn. You basically have that on a 2-turn cooldown, right? So when you have a champion like that in the game, when you have an AoE provoke for 1 turn on a 4-turn cooldown that's not doing any turn meter manipulation, it just feels weak in comparison, right? So I think it's past time that be the standard nowadays. 3-turn AoE crowd control abilities, I think it's just past time, right? So I would book this. I would take this from a 6-turn to a 5-turn cooldown, and I would have it booked to a 3-turn cooldown. But I would add a little bit of survivability as well, because he's going to be taking on more damage. I would also add this. I would add places a shield buff on this champion for 2 turns equal to 20% of this champion's max HP. Now, he's a defensive-based champion, so you're going to be prioritizing defense, but that's why I picked HP, right? I don't want it to be a super powerful shield that you like won't have any chance of getting through. I do want it to be balanced, right? So I think HP is fair. You can build them with a little bit of HP and you'll get a little bit of added survivability as well. So that's what I would do for the A3. It's going to lead into more single target attacks on the A1, which is going to lead into more buff steals, so on and so forth. I don't think that's crazy, especially when you consider you have champions like Armand's and Fabian, even champions like, in all honesty, like Carolon the Ringer. He's someone who I have. He's got an AoE freeze that does full turn meter reduction if he places the freeze. And if he doesn't place the freeze, he's boosting your ally's turn meter by 10% for each one he doesn't place. So you have all these super powerful crowd control abilities in the game now. I don't think it would be the worst thing to go back and look at some of these champions that are a little bit old school and buff them up a little bit. So that's what I would do for the A3. He also has a passive here, Joyful Song. At the start of this champion's turn, transfers 1 random buff from 1 random enemy to a random ally. This champion's accuracy is increased by 5 for each buff on each ally. Now, I actually really like the passive. It's a lot like the A1. I wouldn't change anything about this. I think it's a really great passive ability. So it just synergizes well. And more than that, it's a fun passive. it's not busted, it's not broken, it's a little RNG, right? Like you might get all the bad buffs, like whatever. But he's a St. Patrick's Day champion. It leans into the luck of the Irish type thing. And I just like it, right? And then the accuracy for each buff on each ally is really good as well. And with the changes I made to the A2, where you're placing increased resistance on all allies for 2 turns, that would give him just on that ability an extra 20 accuracy to go into placing more provokes, right? So guys, that's going to do it for what I would change as far as his kit goes. You could go a little bit further and you could say give him an aura. He doesn't have an aura right now. And you could say resist in all battles, maybe accuracy in all battles, something that leans into the kit. But I actually don't think with the changes we made, I actually don't think that he really needs an aura. I think that he's pretty good as is. And I think that these small changes would enable him to be a better like Hydra provoker. I think it would enable him to be a better wave controller, especially when you consider like the higher waves of Doom Tower Hard, where you go up against like, there's one floor that always sticks out to me. It's got like 2 Siphies, 2 Rotuses. And so there's tons of buffs going out. There's tons of cleansing going on. And he can really help you to steal some of those buffs, control the waves a little bit, and so on and so forth. So as far as the kit goes, that's all I would change. Real quick, let's go over the build I would recommend for this guy. Now, the build that I'm recommending is going based off of not having him booked and not accounting for these changes I would make. So the build that I have him in right now, or these builds I have him in right now, are taking into consideration that he's unbooked and he's built and his skills are the way that they are right now. So what I have is I have 3 recommendations. I would go Reflex, 4-piece Merciless, and Perception. Now, the best combination in my opinion, especially if he's unbooked, which I don't recommend you book this guy, would be 4-piece Reflex and 4-piece Merciless. Now, Reflex is going to give us a 40% chance to reduce a random skill cooldown by 1 turn at the start of every turn. And Merciless is going to give us a 30% chance to decrease a random skill's cooldown by 1 turn when dealing damage. Now, the counterattack leading into more A1s, I really like. It synergizes with the 4-piece Merciless really well. So if you can, I would put both of those together. If you can't, however, 4-piece Merciless and Perception is also really good. 4-piece Reflex and Perception also really good. It gives us speed. It gives us accuracy in order to place those debuffs on the A3 and the A2, right? So, guys, that's what I would do for this champion. Let me know what you think. I think it would be fun. I would love to see Nari the Lucky buffed. I think he's got one of those kits that I think it's close to being really good for like general use kind of PvE stuff and maybe even a little bit in arena as well. But he's just not quite there yet. So I'm going to go ahead and wrap the video up there, guys. Again, let me know what you think. I appreciate you guys dropping by. All the love and support you guys have been showing over the past couple of weeks has been great. And I will just continue to try to put out as much good content as I can. So take care, guys. I will see you on the next one. Later.